Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Behind the Practice, where we highlight people, products, and processes serving the dental community. And our podcast is brought to you by Dentamax, and I am your host, Alicia Diujuste. And today we have a treat. I am so excited to have our guest, Toby Bosette. I said that wrong.
You said it right.
Okay, all right, cool. Who is the founder and CEO of DentalFynd. She is also president of a nonprofit, People of Color in Dental. She also is an AI and machine learning expert and adjunct professor at CUNY, and so much more. Toby, wow, your background is astounding. Tell us how you got
Thank
here.
you.
Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I come from the software engineering and technology world, um, AI background, as you mentioned, and specifically just was super frustrated around patient experiences when it came to purchasing healthcare experiences or healthcare services. So, for example, like with retail, it's easy to go on
Mm-hmm.
Amazon.com, order sneakers, and in a few
Yeah,
minutes,
one click
like,
buying.
yeah, exactly. Like, no friction, everything's
Right.
stored. You can see the quality, you know how much you're going to be charged. And then within days, it's at your door. Same thing with ordering food. Um, if you want a burger, you can go on DoorDash. You see the pricing, you see the quality. Few minutes, it's at your door. But with healthcare, it's like, how much is it gonna cost? I don't know. I guess I'll deal with a surprise bill. I thought this was covered. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't have any sense of the quality of care. I
Mm-hmm.
hope it's good. And I guess if not, I'll just sue after the fact or complain my insurance after the fact or just
Right.
deal with the consequences on my body. So just not having that clear information. And so wanted to make healthcare shoppable. And I had already helped consumers in the credit card space avoid surprise charges with a chatbot called Eno at Capital One. And so decided to apply that same background to solve the problem of healthcare and just directly connect providers and patients, starting with dentistry,
Mm-hmm.
just because dental insurance has the least coverage. People are
Right.
already paying for so much out of pocket. And
Mm-hmm.
so using technology to make that process more efficient made a lot of sense. And so that's how DentalFynd was born. That's how I came to the field. And here I am meeting you.
Amazing. So I know, like, you and I have talked about this a little bit before, and you actually had a personal experience of, the marketplace, like you're saying, where you struggled to find proper dental care in a quick, efficient manner. So, would you say that was the moment, the catalyst that you thought,
Yeah, yeah. And I did write an article about this on Dente or in Dente magazine. And that for sure was the moment in the sense of like, I needed a crown and I was just making all these phone calls to make inquiries to manually get that information I needed
right?
on the cost of the crown. And of course, also having to then research each individual provider,
Mm-hmm.
looking at sites like ZocDoc, even Yelp, Google reviews
Right.
to read the reviews, which again is very time consuming, very manual. But this is your health, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and money is also important, so it's like I just wanted to be financially sound in how I was going about my business and proactive. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, after weeks of that process, and then, you know, once you find the provider, so I ended up going to a dental school just because it's so affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And you have professors supervising the dental students.
Right.
And so that ended up being a good route. But then even once I found that provider, it still took additional weeks to get the appointment. So yeah, it was just like, this is too fraught with inconvenience, like this process, right? And
Yeah.
even for a more savvy, because I've worked in the healthcare industry before,
Hmm.
worked for EHR companies, electronic health record companies like
Right.
Cerner, which is now Oracle,
Hmm.
studied at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. So definitely a more sophisticated healthcare consumer, and still was finding it hard to navigate the system. So imagine if you don't have insurance, if you're not,
Hmm.
knowing what to look for, then. So yeah, that's basically the moment where I was like, this needs to be easier. Technology, needs to disrupt this space. And I built DentalFynd to create that disruption and directly connect dentists and patients to
Yeah.
shop for dental care, and help dentists get paid faster, easier.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely 100% know that a product like yours is needed in the community. So, even, having worked a front desk and having to have patients call and say, "Do you take my insurance?" The umbrella, the networks of insurance companies are so convoluted. You call, they think it's Anthem or whatever it might be. And then you call Anthem and they're like, no, they're under our side piece, which is blah, blah. And then you call that one and they're like, you've called the medical department, and just bouncing. It's just crazy.
Horrible.
Patients don't know
Yeah.
how to navigate that. And administrators, there's no guidebook for this where, it's easily accessible to know this is who I should call to just verify this person's benefits so I can educate them. And so I've had the pleasure. You've walked me through a demo of DentalFynd, and what struck me the most about it is how easy it was, how accessible it was, and how upfront it was. Frictionless is, I think, one of the
Thank
words you
you.
used earlier, and I would totally agree with that. And from the technology standpoint, I know that you've poured into this software, but the thing I love about it is anyone can adopt it. You don't have to do an integration with your practice management
Correct.
software. You probably could, but you don't have to in order to reap the benefits of your platform. So, I know you kind of count it as a bit of a marketplace, um, all of that for finding dentists. Can you? Great, you've got it up. Can you walk us through this journey of how a patient would go through your system?
Sure. So ideally, they have one of our plans. These are similar to membership plans in the sense that they're alternatives to insurance. The
Yeah.
patient gets two cleanings and 15% off everything else. Um, we actually just introduced an essential plan, like third option, which
Mm-hmm.
includes one cleaning. The point is that we want to increase case acceptance and
Yeah.
predictability for the dentist. And so having a treatment plan enables, or excuse me, having a membership plan or discount plan with DentalFynd enables the patient to
Mm-hmm.
easily say yes and come back for treatment. So, say, for example, you're going to a wedding in a month, and you see Dr. Narani, he's one of our future dentists. You want to get your teeth whitened, but it's 2 a.m. in the morning, there's no
Mm-hmm.
dentist open. And, just going back to the phone tag, no one wants to do that.
Right.
So,
Right.
the front desk doesn't want to have those financial conversations either.
Right.
And so you're able to go into Dr. Narani's Dental Fund profile, add the whitening to your cart, and check out, put in your availability, um, and then add your credit card information. So because you have a discount plan, you're going to save 15% off of this whitening. And so basically, this is a way to still give patients that feeling that they have with insurance without,
Mm-hmm.
for you, as for the providers, like having to do all that paperwork, or, you know, dealing with claims or waiting months to get paid. Um, with Dental Fine, the practice gets paid in days. And then the patient can also finance through a firm
Mm-hmm.
Say the 552 is too much, we have financing options. So these are the ways where we're removing the barriers that patients have to care, whether it's, oh, I don't know how much it's going to cost, and that becomes a
Yeah.
deterrent, or the office is closed, they can go on dentalfynd.com anytime, book care with our dentist. Or, oh, this is too much in one jump between
Mm-hmm.
our membership plans or financing. Those remove the hurdles around pricing. So, um, like you said, it's a marketplace. The dentist can come in at 9 a.m., see the requests in his queue, and then message the
Mm-hmm.
patient back on DentalFynd, um, approve once they're sufficiently, gotten the answers like, no, maybe they want to know, have you had your cleaning in 6 months?
Right.
And then from there, the charge would be completed, meaning that the patient, you would get a notification email letting you know Dr. Mari's office approved your booking request, and then you can schedule online if they have online scheduling. Some practices feel like they don't necessarily want to have patients self-book, so the
Sure.
office is always free to just continue messaging the
Yep.
patient to
Yep.
confirm the appointment time.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing, so I am your target audience. Like everything you said speaks to me and how I shop. Like online at midnight, I don't have time and I don't want to call the office and go, "What do you charge for whitening?" And, "Can you see me on this day because I have an event?" And, I've had those conversations with
Right.
patients and I've been that person who is in that spot as a patient, and then it's like there's almost not necessarily an embarrassment, but some people still have a hard time going, and what is that going to cost me? Because they're worried about how that might make them sound or
Yes, for
come
sure.
off. So, and there are no dental offices that, oh, sorry, my phone is ringing somewhere.
I don't hear anything actually.
Well, that's good. It is very strange. I'm like signed out of all my stuff, so I don't know how to make that stop.
Well, I don't hear it, so if you can just
Sorry.
ignore it and keep going, it's fine.
Found it. Okay. Sorry, that was taking over my headset, so I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. There are no dental offices that publish their pricing online. It just, they don't do it. They're not putting their price
They're
manual
not
on their
on Dental
website.
Find. Yeah, there's
Exactly. Yes. So, what was the turning point where you realized like Dental Find has real traction for the dental market?
well, it was number one, the fact that dentists are so frustrated with insurance and PPOs and
Right.
like the negotiated rates that,
Yes.
really the dentist has no say in. And they feel like they're at the mercy of the PPOs because they're like, hey, any business is better than nothing, like even if they're paying
Hmm.
peanuts. So, like, I'd
Right.
rather participate and utilize them and get the patient flow. So, that pain point, especially when you realize that the dentist is dealing with barely, maybe even breaking even on these treatments, only to still have to wait months to get paid, if they get paid at all,
Hmm.
because it can be a denial. And this is after spending time understanding all these codes and, like you said, calling to figure out what's the patient's explanation of benefits and,
Right.
like what's in network and how much of this is this particular patient's plan covered
Yep.
for with this procedure. So it's just so much unnecessary headache that the dentist has to deal with. And like just giving them this pathway to giving the
Hmm.
practice a pathway with DentalFynd to transition off or at least have more of their business and their revenue coming fee for service
Yeah.
is how like I knew that DentalFynd had that traction that you're talking about because we're solving a real pain point. We're not a vitamin, we're a painkiller.
Right.
We're, like the dentists have this real need around how do I acquire patients and retain them and get more
Yep.
seats in the chair
Yep.
without having to trade off, rates that actually cut away at my business, cut away at, the profitability, and
Right.
also just give me a headache, right? Like
Yeah.
take too much time and it's
Yeah.
cumbersome process.
Well, and the other thing I really like about what you're doing is some other companies that you mentioned earlier that are not insurance companies, that are more of a, you know, SEO kind of play. Help me find a dentist. It's another listing for the dentist somewhere. I know a lot
Correct.
of them will charge the practice just for the booking, but there's no guarantee that that patient's even going to show up and spend any money. So, and in fact, it costs the practice money if they don't show up. Um, so
Correct.
I know you're collecting that money and making sure the dentist gets paid based on, those services that the practice wants to offer. I think that's a huge differentiation between what you're doing and what else is out there on the market.
For sure. And, you know, I'll be so bold as to explicitly list where a lot of our dentists come from.
Mhm.
They come from ZocDoc. That's our
Yeah.
closest well-known
Yep.
sort of competitor
Right.
in terms of being a technology that's not insurance, that's helping patients find dentists and dentists, promote themselves. And the dentist frustration is that, yes, like they're getting charged for these patient leads that are
Right.
canceling last minute, or even if they do show up, they aren't accepting the treatment plan because they're a low quality patient, meaning that
Mhm.
they don't typically they're not in network. There's some confusion in the
Right.
ZocDoc process where the patient thinks or claims they have insurance when they show up that they don't actually have
Right.
insurance, that the practice participates, even though the practice is very clear, maybe like, oh, we don't accept Medicaid, when the
Right.
patient shows up and they only have
Right.
Medicaid. So yes, to your point, because we enable patients to prepay,
Mhm.
that increases, that reduces no-shows.
Yeah. What happens? I'm sure there's cases where the patient does prepay, probably not very often, but they do prepay and then they no show. What happens when that occurs?
Yeah, I mean, the standard thing that happens with any practice, or most practices have a
Yeah.
cancellation fee. So that same thing would apply with the $75 cancellation fee. Um, the
Good.
rest would go back to the patient. Of course, we would like, like in most cases, they're rescheduling, so it's not like
Right.
a complete loss.
Yeah, I'm certain. Like if I've prepaid for something and I can't make it, I'm usually rescheduling. So, just wondering how it affected the practice on the back end in those rare
Yeah.
instances.
And the other thing, if you think about the calculus in terms of
Hmm.
like from a dentist perspective, like how do they justify their marketing expenses with DentalFynd? We're
Hmm.
charging a fixed fee of 450 each month.
Hmm.
And this is only once we've started getting that practice at least three patients. So like the fact that there's no cap,
Yeah.
meaning that with ZocDoc, they're paying per patient lead.
Right.
With
Right.
DentalFynd, you could get 10 patients that month. You're still paying just the 450. So,
Yeah.
okay, maybe one patient cancels, A, you get the cancellation fee, and B, in the grand scheme of things, you still
Hmm.
make your money back, especially
Right.
when you think about the cost of acquisition per patient. So, like at minimum, each patient is like around 150,
Hmm. Yep.
like each of the three, given
Right.
the expense per month. And, at like ideally, like or at best, it's actually even lower than that. Say you get, you know, six patients that month, then each patient is only costing you $75 to acquire.
Right.
So, there's really no downside with Dental Find in the sense that if we don't get you the three patients, you're not paying the 450. So, like financially, it just, a lot of dentists tell us that it's a no-brainer in terms of
Hmm.
going with Dental Fynd.
Yeah. Are there any specific dentists or dental specialties where you found like this is our ideal dentist? What type of practice does this seem to work the best for?
Great question. General dentists for sure.
Hmm.
They don't necessarily have anyone to refer to them besides their patients.
Exactly.
A lot of specialists rely on general dentists for the referrals.
Yep.
So haven't gotten like a ton of interest from them, but the cosmetic dentists,
Hmm.
so orthodontists, for example,
Yeah.
um, the dentists who are doing implants,
Right.
they tend to really gravitate towards Dental, even though technically, they're still able to get referrals from the general dentist. The
Hmm.
thing is that because they're doing so many cosmetic treatments, those things are things that insurance doesn't cover. So they see
Right.
the value. They're typically very much aligned with the fee for service model. So they see the
Right.
value of Dental Find immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even say probably like denture clinics, patients that need dentures usually they have to have a couple of sets made. And usually insurance if they pay for any, they're only paying for one. And so that would be I think
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. So that's the
Yeah.
periodontist that does implants. The same dentist that does implants does the dentures.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's even denture clinics that's all they do. So
Mm,
yeah, there's I think anybody could use this. I love it.
for sure. So are you saying those denture clinics don't employ periodontists? They employ general dentists that are doing this, or what kind of dentists
Yeah,
are
they're
working on
just
that?
denturists, and they don't do implants necessarily. They're just making the prosthetic
So
after.
they're a general dentist that's doing this work?
They're not. They're actually called denturists, and they're able to just make dentures for people
Is
with
this a
or without
hygienist or a
implants.
dental assistant? What kind of clinician is this denturist?
It's an advanced degree, so but I do know some independent hygienists who have gone on and got denturist certificates, and they've got it's kind of I don't want to call it an in between, but an in between from a dental office to a lab. It's a carve out. So, yeah, um, there's not it's not super well known, but there are definitely people out there who
So a denturist is a specialized type of hygienist?
well, it's just a dental specialty. So, and they've got to get their advanced degree for it. But I
So
know
could a
hygienists, for example. Yeah.
so you're saying any kind of dental clinician could be a denturist. They just need to get this specialty certificate,
Yeah, I
like a
believe
dentist
so.
could be.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, exactly. So,
Okay.
yeah, I just see so many use cases for your platform. Just because I'm in Arizona, we have a high population of seniors who come here to retire. And, again, insurance usually, if they cover any dentures, it's only one set of dentures. And they lose their dentures, it gets eaten by the dog, or it just doesn't fit anymore because their mouth, their anatomy changes over time without the teeth there. They're going to need another set of dentures at some point. And typically, if it is covered, it's like once every 5 years or once every 10 years, even, which the gap in time is really too long. And one of the things we kind of talk about in amongst my dental community friends is the perception that insurance only covers it once every 10 years. So I only need it once every 10 years is not necessarily true. So I really like the expectation that you are setting with the pricing up front and, kind of the patient signaling to the practice they're ready to move forward and get stuff done. instead of them
Right.
showing up and then asking for the quote and then trying to figure out, can I do it? I definitely think that's a friction point your product is removing for people in a lot of different scenarios outside of cosmetic. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We're definitely interested in reaching more elderly people. I
Hmm.
think the main issue with them has just been like how tech savvy are they to the point that they're using a digital tool like DentalFynd
Right.
to book
Yeah.
care. They typically do want to call to make
Hmm.
their appointments. But yeah, if you know any denture
Yeah.
clinics, yeah, I'm happy to have a conversation with them. See if
Absolutely. So I have a
DentalFynd can
couple other
help.
random questions for you. Um, if you weren't doing AI and technology in dentistry, what career path might you have taken? Because your background is like you've got a lot of heavy hitting, awesome credentials. What would you have done otherwise?
Yeah, definitely a unique question. Probably, okay, so two answers are kind of like fake answers because I really don't think there is anything else that I can do. Like, I'm not capable. I don't think there's anything else I can do with my life, sadly. But so when I was really little, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And I like the idea of like arguing cases, and
I could
I
totally
like
see you doing that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The only issue was that I am not very good at memorizing stuff, and history is really boring for me. And a lot of lawyers, as you might know, they typically are like poli-sci majors or history majors, and
Yeah.
it makes sense because you need to know the law and memorize the
Right.
law. And like,
Yep.
I would, I
Case
would
law.
I knew that that part was like the end of me because it was like the logic part makes sense and like that I like that part build,
Mm-hmm.
but like especially as a litigator, like I wouldn't have
Right.
been when I thought about a lawyer, I was thinking about a litigator, and not like a corporate lawyer or like an IP
Yeah.
lawyer or any of that more, paper stuff. And so yeah, like I was like, oh, when I realized this is what which makes sense. It's like the law isn't just like current, but you have to think about the precedents, and that's why history is required. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't like do that. So like
Yeah.
that would be very difficult for me. And then when I was in college, like when I was in high school, so I realized pretty early that law wouldn't be a good fit. But then as I
Mm-hmm.
got older, I started thinking more seriously. I was always interested in healthcare.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I had exposure to. A lot of my family works in the healthcare field. So I was like, okay, I'll be a doctor. And I was pre-med in college. And like I was doing fine and my biology classes in high school and chemistry and all that stuff. So the issue was in college, then of course things are much harder, and
Mm-hmm.
biology and certain aspects like organic chemistry, there's just so much memorization.
Yeah.
So that was just where I was like, I don't think this is a fit.
You're like, no.
Like as much as so it's like with law, it was like the brain, like my brain aligned in terms of like originally what I thought like
Yeah.
lawyers did, but then like the path to becoming that made it like disqualified it as like a practical field
Mm-hmm.
for me. And then with healthcare, it was like, okay, like my brain didn't quite align with it. It was more of
Yeah.
like my heart kind of
Yeah.
like that was what sparked the interest. Like
Mm-hmm.
the field was very interesting to me, and that's why, for example, earlier I said took public health classes at
Yeah.
Johns Hopkins, and even in my undergrad at UPenn, took a lot of public health classes as well. I just decided that, and I decided I realized much later,
Yeah.
like as a senior, and that it was probably tenuous in terms of being able to get through the bar in terms of like it's like okay in high school I was getting through the coursework and whatever, but then it also turned out that my brain didn't really work out. Realize that
Mm-hmm.
like how my brain works. didn't
Right.
really align with the path for a doctor. But here I
Yeah.
am, still technically in the healthcare field,
Right.
just from a technical
Yep.
perspective. And I was like, okay, the logic part, right? Logic without needing to have to memorize a lot of stuff.
Memorize.
And that's really like my strong suit.
Right. That's great. So I don't want you to give away all your secrets, but do you have any plans for any additional technology that you're thinking of creating for the dental healthcare market?
Yes, actually, I wouldn't even consider that a secret. Say that all
Okay.
the time. Like, my goal is to make all of healthcare shoppable,
Yeah.
starting with dentistry, which means that eventually products like iFind, MedFind are going to
Hmm.
come out. So making it easy for people to shop for medical care, for vision care, even pet
Yeah.
care with VetFind.
Yep.
There's a lot of lack of transparency with vet insurance or pet
Hmm.
insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally see that.
So
So
healthcare for all, humans and
healthcare
animals
for
alike.
all. Yes. Well, I know that kind of speaks to like the heart of who you are. And part of that, you've got the nonprofit People of Color in Dental. Do you want to tell us a little bit about um, how that came to be and what does that group look like? What are you guys up to?
Sure. So People of Color in Dental, or POC in Dental, is a nonprofit professional association dedicated to empowering racial minorities in the dental field, whether they're clinicians or not, alongside
Hmm.
allies. So we're very inclusive, open to everyone in terms of executing against that mission. We do things like expert webinars where people can learn about the latest trends, um, virtual in-person events. For example, we just had a reception at at California Dental Association Presents.
Nice. Yeah.
We did do an event at Chicago Midwinter as well,
Cool.
just creating those networking opportunities so people aren't just getting the knowledge they need, but they're also
Yeah.
making the connections and getting the opportunities to use that knowledge and
Yeah.
actually apply that knowledge, so that they can advance in their careers and thrive in their careers and reach their career goals. And the reason I founded that group was because, as someone who is a minority, a racial minority in the dental field, I didn't see a lot of like support for
Hmm.
um, people like myself, especially if they weren't a clinician. Like, there are
Yeah.
groups like the National Dental Association or the
Hmm.
Hispanic Dental Association or SED, which is the Native American organizations. There are groups for
Yeah.
women, which obviously
Right.
I am a woman. It's just a lot of times there wasn't that kind of representation
Yeah.
in the field. So, like, I'm not a dentist. Like groups like NDA weren't really on my
Right.
radar. They weren't geared towards people like me as a technologist. And so, yeah, I just decided to bridge that gap because
I love that.
success in the field is who you know, right? And so
Yeah.
relationships are everything. And I just wanted to make it easier for other people to build
Hmm.
those relationships and move their careers forward. And
Yeah.
I just, with DentalFynd, I really struggled with networking, having never worked in the field before. And
Right.
so,
Yeah. I can
um,
imagine.
yeah, 2 years in, DentalFynd was the first sponsor of People of Color in Dental. So, yeah, anyone who, if you personally want a community, um, or you want to champion the cause, we do have different membership options. Um, Besides corporate sponsorships, membership dues are the way we fund the organization. And that will also get you some swag, like a polo, and access to our virtual communities, Slack, Facebook groups, etc. And
Nice.
then, from a corporate angle, it's really about getting one's brand out there to our membership base.
Yeah.
So that is another way that people can support, is if they're a VP of marketing, VP of sales, or
Right.
that kind of thing. They have a business development role at their company,
Hmm.
um, passing it along, or even an HR role. A lot of times, the HR person wants to support professional development of their employees, and so
Yeah.
it can the company can be interested in working with people of color from a branding perspective in terms of reaching members with their product, or they can be interested from a professional development perspective for their employees.
That's awesome. So, on the back of that, I have one last question for you that relates. So, is there a mentor that you've had, or a book, or a life experience that influenced you and your mindset, you know, to be this entrepreneur and this movement starter? Like, was there one thing that you can point to and go, yes?
Yes, there is. And my biggest supporter, I feel like, or most, uh, I guess, someone who's been quite influential for me in my dental
Hmm.
career has been Fred Joyal. And yeah, like he is a board member on DentalFynd. He's also a board member on my nonprofit,
Yeah.
um, People of Color in Dental. And he actually wrote a book called Super Bold. And that is just, I think, I mean, I've always been authentically myself. And
Hmm.
I think especially when you're new to an industry, it can get even harder to like stay true to that. Or if you're an introvert,
Hmm.
which Fred historically was an introvert. And yeah, he's just a mentor to me, like because A, he founded 1-800 Dental Dentists,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
like that is a company that was like a forerunner in terms of the idea of
Hmm.
helping dentists find patients, helping patients find dentists using the phone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, leading the way in that sense, like, working
Hmm.
with him just aligned. And he's also a champion of diversity. Like,
Yeah.
he is such a great ally. And so, yeah, I'll just do a quick screen share so people can, or maybe I should drop it in the chat. It's called Super Bold, From Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days. So it's literally a playbook,
Nice.
for, just making sure that you're living your calling and that,
Yeah.
you know, you're making sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do without compromising. And boldness is a huge part of
Hmm.
success.
Absolutely. No, and I bet he is like so proud of what you've created, and the business that Dental Find is, and all the networking you're doing. I just applaud you. I think what you've done with Dental Find is
Aw,
just definitely needed and necessary and smart. So,
thank you.
congratulations on your success with it.
I
Awesome. And here's
appreciate
the
that.
book. Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
And it's been so great having you on, and talking about Dental Find, your product, who you are, where you've come from, and how you got here. I think people are always fascinated by how to get from A to B, and so it's been a really cool journey. So thank you for sharing it with us today, Toby.
Thank you for having me, Alicia. It's been a pleasure. I love the enthusiasm, and we definitely love our partners like Dentamax, and look forward to, promoting you guys and supporting you guys, however we can to make sure that you guys are also able to reach dentists and improve the dental space.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.